I stood frozen in my slippers at 2:47 a.m., the bitter chill of a late September night in Willow Creek, Oregon, biting at my skin. My house, my sanctuary, was an inferno. Flames clawed at the sky, devouring 20 years of memories, every photo, every keepsake, every trace of my late wife, Clara. The heat was unbearable even from 50 feet away, but inside me, a colder fire burned. Rage, sharp and unyielding. My hands shook so badly, I fumbled my phone twice trying to dial 911. As the operator's voice crackled through, I already knew who did this. That venomous HOA tyrant, Diane Morrow. She'd crossed a line no one could come back from. The fire roared like a beast, but she had no clue what she'd just awakened in me. Let me take you back to where this nightmare kicked off. It was a crisp Tuesday morning in Willow Creek, a quiet little suburb where I thought I could disappear into my grief. I was out in Clara's rose garden, a patch of earth she'd poured her heart into before cancer stole her away. I'd been living under her maiden name, James Willow, to keep a low profile after 2 decades as a federal judge, locking up the worst kinds of criminals. All I wanted was peace, to tend to Clara's roses and hold on to her memory. God, was I naive? The air was cool, the kind of October morning Clara would have called God's masterpiece. I was pruning her roses when Diane Morrow stormed up my driveway like she owned the whole damn neighborhood. Mid-40s, sharp bob haircut, clutching a clipboard like it was a guillotine. Everything about her screamed control freak, the way she strutted, the way her eyes narrowed, the way her voice dripped with smug authority. Mr. Willow, she barked, your fence is 3 inches too high. That's a $600 fine, payable now. I'd faced drug lords with better manners. Grief had worn me down, and all I wanted was to be left alone, but 20 years of legal instincts don't just vanish. I glanced at her so-called paperwork. The measurements were nonsense, the citation format was a joke, and the legal codes she quoted didn't exist in Oregon law. This wasn't just petty HOA nonsense, it was a scam, and a sloppy one at that. These numbers don't add up, I said, keeping my tone steady. And can you point me to the regulation you're citing? Because this code doesn't exist. Big mistake. You don't poke a bear like Diane unless you're ready for claws. Her face twisted, and she snapped, listen, old man, I run this neighborhood. Pay the fine, or you'll regret it. The way she said old man hit like a slap, like I was some nuisance cluttering her perfect little kingdom. Regret what exactly? I asked, my voice low. That's when she unleashed a tirade, threats of liens, foreclosure, property seizure, the works. Standard bully tactics to scare someone raw from loss. But then she went too far. Maybe if you weren't so busy moping over your dead wife, you'd keep your property in line. Time to move on, Grandpa. Your sob story's an eyesore. The world stopped. My grief, my love for Clara, the woman who'd been my everything, she turned it into a weapon. Something snapped inside me, not just pain but a cold, focused fury I hadn't felt since Clara's death. Diane had just woken a sleeping giant, a federal judge who'd spent 20 years crushing predators like her. I stood tall, all 6 feet of me, and let my voice shift from broken widower to courtroom warrior. Miss Morrow, I said, watching her flinch as my tone hardened, you just made a catastrophic mistake. Her eyes widened, sensing the shift, but too arrogant to back down. You attacked my late wife, issued fake legal threats, and assumed I'm helpless. My name is Henry Caldwell, retired federal judge, Oregon District. For 20 years, I prosecuted fraud and organized crime. You just tried to scam the wrong man. Her face drained of color, the clipboard trembling in her hands. You have 24 hours to produce legitimate HOA election records, survey documents, and a legal basis for this citation. If you can't, you'll learn what happens when you cross someone who put people like you in prison. She backed off without a word, but I saw the venom in her eyes. This wasn't over, she was plotting. That night, my security cameras installed after threats from my judge days caught her whispering into her phone outside my house. Mark, we've got a problem. He's not just some sad old widower, he's a damn federal judge. But I'm not backing down. He thinks his title scares me. He's about to learn retired judges are just old men with dusty degrees. I knew then this wasn't just a neighborhood spat. This was war. The next morning, I woke to 3 more citations shoved under my door. $500 for Clara's garden stones, $600 for her rose bushes being too tall, $700 for noise from her wind chimes. Diane wasn't just coming for Mesh, was trying to erase Clara's memory, to break me by destroying every piece of her I had left. Standing there, staring at her roses, I felt a rage so cold it scared me. Not the kind that makes you lash out, but the kind that makes you sharp, calculated, deadly. That's when I remembered Clara's safe deposit box. She'd told me about it before she passed, but I'd avoided it, too raw to face more grief. Now, I had to know what she'd left me. At the bank, the manager handed me an envelope with Clara's handwriting. For Henry, when someone threatens our home. Not if when. Like she knew this day would come. Inside was $50,000 in cash, legal documents, and a letter that hit me like a freight train. Henry, it read, if you're reading this, someone's targeting us. I've been investigating predators who prey on grieving judicial families. They think our pain makes us weak. They're wrong. Use what I've prepared. Fight with everything you have. My love will always protect you. There was a contact for a private investigator, Tom Reynolds, ex-FBI, vetted by Clara herself. Tom was at my door in days, a no-nonsense guy who could sniff out fraud like a bloodhound. Your wife reached out 2 years ago, he said. She knew you'd be a target after she was gone and built a plan to protect you. Clara, fighting cancer, and still planning 3 steps ahead to shield me. Tom's investigation uncovered Diane's operation, and it was worse than I imagined. She wasn't just a power-hungry HOA nut, she was a professional predator. 6 neighborhoods, $900,000 stolen over 5 years through fake HOA elections, forged citations, and forced property sales to her shell companies. She targeted widowers like me, people she thought wouldn't fight back. My neighbor, George Harper, started connecting with others in Willow Creek. The stories were gut-wrenching. The Thompsons, forced out after $2,500 in fake fines. Lisa Carter, a single mom hit with $450 for her kids' chalk drawings. Maria Lopez, a nurse who nearly lost her savings to Diane's fake parking tickets. 25 families, all terrorized, too scared or isolated to resist. But now they had a pissed-off federal judge with resources and a score to settle. Diane didn't stop. She showed up with her brother, Mark, and 2 goons who looked like they bench-pressed cars for fun. Take our offer, she sneered. $200,000 for your house. Leave quietly, or things get worse. Mark leaned in, voice low. We know about your grief counseling, your isolation. Widowers make mistakes. Accidents happen. I called out, Tom, you getting this? Diane's face froze as Tom stepped forward, cameras rolling. Every word, Your Honor. She screamed about harassment, but I cut her off. You brought thugs to threaten a federal judge. That's a federal crime. Leave my property. Now. Then she went too far. Clara's cat, Tinker, 16 years old and deaf, was her companion through chemo. Diane's crew left my gate open during a property inspection, letting aggressive dogs chase Tinker. I found him hours later, trembling and injured. Sitting in the vet's office at 1 a.m., holding the last living piece of Clara, I made a vow. This was personal. Diane had declared war, and I was done playing nice. At 2:47 a.m., on September 28, 2023, professional arsonists torched my craftsman-style home. The flames roared, windows shattered, and everything Clara's handwritten recipes, our first Christmas ornaments, her law degree from Stanford turned to ash. I escaped with Tinker and the pajamas on my back. On the sidewalk, I collapsed, sobbing. Clara, I'm sorry, I whispered. I couldn't save our home. George found me, his own anger mirroring mine. The fire chief confirmed it. Chemical accelerants, multiple ignition points, a professional hit meant to look like insurance fraud. But grief turned to resolve. The community rallied, all 50 families packing the community center that morning. I stood before them, voice steady. Diane and Mark Morrow hired arsonists to burn my home because I exposed their scam. They thought they could break me. They were wrong. The room erupted in support, voting unanimously to back my fight. By noon, the story was everywhere. Federal judge's home torched in HOA scheme, on Portland news, then national outlets. Diane became arsonist Karen, her face plastered across the country. Tom's investigation, now backed by the ATF, FBI, and U.S. Attorney's Office, built an airtight case. They had bank records of Diane paying arsonist Eddie Klein $18,000, surveillance audio of her planning the fire, and a paper trail of her fraud across 6 states. Diane, thinking she'd won, held a press conference, smirking in front of cameras. "This tragic fire shows the risks of neglecting property standards," she said. A reporter called her out. "Are you saying Judge Caldwell caused this?" Her reply was pure hubris. "I'm saying bad maintenance has consequences." She'd just admitted motive on live TV. "I filed a civil lawsuit for property destruction, defamation, and racketeering, dragging Diane into my world federal court." She took the bait, hiring a pricey lawyer and countersuing for malicious prosecution. I couldn't help but smile. She demanded a jury trial in Oregon State Court, my battlefield. The federal case grew massive. Arson of a federal official's home, 25 years mandatory, interstate fraud under RICO, and more. Eddie Klein flipped, detailing Diane's orders. George compiled victim statements from all 50 families, showing $28,000 in fake fines in Willow Creek alone. Diane's desperation added charges: witness intimidation, evidence tampering, false insurance claims. The feds waited, letting her dig her own grave. "Why haven't they arrested her?" George asked. "Because every move she makes adds years to her sentence," I said. "Let her hang herself." The grand jury prepared a 50 to 80-year indictment, and Diane had no idea. At 6 a.m., federal marshals arrested her. "You burned a federal judge's home," they said. "That's domestic terrorism." She screamed about harassment, but the magistrate judge wasn't having it. Flight risk, multiple fake IDs, danger to the community. In court, Diane represented herself against all advice, a disaster from the start. U.S. Attorney Sarah Bennett laid out the case like a surgeon: financial records, audio of Diane ordering the fire, Eddie's testimony. When I took the stand, I felt 20 years of courtroom power return. "State your name," Sarah said. "Henry Caldwell, retired federal judge, Oregon District, 20 years prosecuting fraud and organized crime." Diane's cross-examination was a train wreck. "Didn't you abuse your authority to frame me?" she demanded. "Investigating fraud is every citizen's right," I shot back. "My experience, just let me spot your scam faster." She ranted about FBI conspiracies, but I shut her down. "Why did you pay Eddie Klein $18,000 3 days before the fire?" Her lies unraveled. The jury took 92 minutes, guilty on all counts. Judge Margaret Ellis delivered the sentence: 50 years, no parole until Diane's 89. Then I dropped Clara's bombshell. Her notes, missed even by the FBI, showed Diane had stalked judicial families for a decade, with 3 other judges' spouses dying in accidents after her harassment. Judge Ellis ordered a murder investigation. Diane's courtroom meltdown screaming, threatening was her final collapse. We recovered $1.7 million from Diane and Mark's accounts, enough to rebuild my home exactly as Clara designed it. The community poured in $60,000, labor, and materials. George became HOA president, bringing transparent governance. Online financials, votes on fines over $30, a $100,000 legal defense fund. Clara's law passed in Oregon, mandating HOA oversight and background checks, with 15 states following. The Clara Caldwell Community Center and restored garden became symbols of our victory. 3 years later, I stand in Clara's garden, watching her favorite sparrows at the feeders. Diane rots in FCI Tucson, up at 4:30 a.m. For kitchen duty, no appeals left, facing potential murder charges for those suspicious deaths. The Hartwell Foundation, inspired by Clara, protects communities nationwide, with $2.8 million in grants and laws in 16 states. Our Stories in Law Schools, a documentary, a bestseller. I'm dating again, slowly, knowing Clara would want me to find joy. Willow Creek is a family now potlucks, childcare, unity Diane never broke. Diane thought she could crush a grieving widower. She learned love doesn't die at fights. Clara's foresight saved us, and her legacy protects thousands. To anyone facing a bully like Diane, document everything, rally your neighbors, never back down. Justice prepared is justice served. What do you think? Did Diane deserve her 50 years? Or should the system have shown mercy? Could you forgive someone who burned your memories to ash? Drop a comment, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories where justice hits hard. Where are you watching from? Let's hear your take.